Hey everybody, happy Friday. We have made it to the weekend. How exciting. I know that I just talked to a lot of you on a Google Meet hangout. That was super fun. I love seeing everybody's faces. So today, for our reading of Schooled by Gordon Korman, we're going to be reading chapter 11, okay? And it might be your lucky day. I might be reading some tomorrow and Sunday too. We'll see. But we're going to be reading chapter 11 today of Schooled by Gordon Korman. Chapter 11 is from the perspective of Hugh Winkleman. If you remember, Hugh was the boy who was slated to be 8th grade president before Cap came along. Kind of a nerd, kind of a dweeb, and he was going to be the president, but then they determined that Cap would be a much better choice, so they elected him. And now Hugh, even though Hugh is still kind of a loser, he is just so thankful that he was not chosen for that role. And Hugh has been sitting with Cap at lunch every day and kind of talking to him, but Hugh knows very well that if Cap had never showed up, that he would have been the president. So we're going to be listening to chapter 11 today. I'm so excited to share it with you guys, and we're going to get this Friday started. It's a beautiful day outside. I know you can't see, but outside of this window, it is gorgeous. It is sunny. It is just awesome. So after you listen to me read, get outside and enjoy some time in the great fresh air, okay? All right, so chapter 11, Hugh Winkleman. Here we go. It says, "This was shaping up to be the greatest school year ever. True, my grades were no better than usual, straight A's of course, and I still couldn't climb the ropes in the gym. But I was laying waste to the competition in chess club, but that always happened. I wasn't popular or even borderline acceptable. But I had something going for me, and that was pure gold. I was anonymous. That may not sound like much, but to me, it was my birthday, Christmas, and the 4th of July wrapped all up into one. No longer did I feel the ridiculing eyes boring into me as I walked down the halls at C Average Middle School. Those eyes bored elsewhere. No longer did I have to watch my step for the feet that would trip or kick me. Those feet were otherwise engaged. I could barely even remember my last wedgie. And it was all thanks to, guess who? Cap Anderson. I liked Cap. Really, I did. But I'd be less than honest if I didn't admit that the best thing about him was the fact that he took the heat off of me. I was allowed to live because the pack was in full cry after him. So I was happy, but I was also guilty for feeling happy. And the happier I got, the more guilt spoiled my happiness. Of all the guff that I had taken from Zach Powers over the years, this had to be the worst. That I was feeling bad for something that he was doing. My only crime was benefiting from it. It wasn't like I could have helped Cap. If I had the power to control Zach, Lena, Daryl, and those vipers, then I wouldn't be a victim. Victims have no power. That's what makes us victims. Anyway, this had gone far beyond just Zach's crew. It was the Luke Simard thing all over again. A wide-scale war of little attacks on Cap. The school bus was the bloodiest battlefield. In the building itself, there was a degree of order because there were teachers around. But on the bus, the only authority was the driver, Mr. Rodrigo, and he wasn't exactly the kind of deputy that you'd listen to. He was older and standoffish. He kept his eyes on the road because if he checked the mirror, he might see something. We could have held a luau on that bus with a roast pig and hula dancers, and he would have been none the wiser. The first projectile came sailing up the aisle, spinning like a miniature torch. The Winkleman Encyclopedia of Bullying Techniques identified it instantly. A bunch of jerks at the back were flicking lit matches at Cap. Holy cow, matches that were lit. Wow. I brushed it from the seat, genuinely alarmed. This may have been business as usual in my life, but I had short hair. Cap's flyaway mop was a forest fire waiting to happen. Another flickering shot bounced off the armrest and extinguished itself on the floor. "Cap," I whispered urgently, "duck." He looked up, mystified. "Why?" And at that very instant, Mr. Rodrigo let out a loud groan, clutched his chest, and toppled out of his seat. The clamor of the bus died as if someone had pulled the plug. Was Mr. Rodrigo having a heart attack? We were so frozen with shock that nobody noticed that the bus was still moving, inching forward into oncoming traffic. Hey! Cap shoved me out of the way and hit the floor running. He leaped over Mr. Rodrigo's still form and landed in the driver's seat, stomping on the accelerator. With a roar of the big motor, the bus lurched through the intersection, missing a dump truck by inches. "Where's the hospital?" Cap barked over his shoulder. We all sat there like dummies, scared out of our wits. "The hospital," Cap repeated. "Now!" Suddenly, Naomi was sprinting up the aisle. "Turn here." It took all Cap's wingspan to move the huge steering wheel, swinging the bus into a tight right and speeding off down the street. I found my voice at last. "But Cap, you can't drive a bus," which maybe was the stupidest remark that I could have ever made, because that's exactly what he was doing. He shifted gears and we picked up the speed. What a sight we must have been. A giant speeding yellow school bus weaving in and out of traffic, horn blasting. "Turn left," bawled Naomi. Cap heaved on the wheel. The front tires bounced over a low concrete median, jostling passengers and rattling windows. A painful screech of metal on cement raked our ears as the chassis bottomed out. I thought we were hung up for sure, but the bus sprang forward and then jolted back onto the road. I scrambled on all fours down the aisle, maneuvering around kids who had been tossed out of their seats. Mr. Rodrigo's face was pale, but his chest was moving up and down. "He's still breathing," I yelled to Cap. All at once, the radio burst to life. "Base to 41, crackled the dispatcher's voice. "Come in, 41. Cap looked at the set as if he had never seen one in his entire life, which he probably hadn't. I reached around him and took hold of the microphone. "Hello? Rodrigo, is that you? We've got a report that you're way off course and driving erratically. What's going on?" Mr. Rodrigo can't come to the phone," I began. "Who is this?" the dispatcher demanded. "Hugh Winkleman." "Who?" "A passenger. Mr. Rodrigo's unconscious. We think he might be having a heart attack." "Well, who's driving the bus?" I hesitated. "Capricorn Anderson." "Stop right there," the voice ordered. "We'll send an ambulance for the driver." "No," Cap told me. But the dispatcher said, "We have to get to the hospital," he interrupted. "There's no time to wait around for an ambulance." I spoke into the microphone. "He says no." "He can't say no," the man exploded. "He's endangering the lives of everybody that's on board." Cap glanced at the radio in annoyance. Does this have an off button? It's very distracting. Gotta go, bye. I cut the power to the set. To Cap, I wheezed, "Are you sure you know what you're doing?" Rain says that you always know what you're doing when you're doing the right thing. About 60 seconds later, we heard the sirens. Some kid in the last row made the identification. "Cops." By the time I got back there, 2 police cruisers were on our tail, lights flashing. One of them activated the outside speaker. "Pull over to the side of the road." "You better do it, Cap," I called. "The cops are chasing us." His expression was hidden behind all of that hair, but he crouched even lower over the wheel. It was a wordless statement. It would take an M1 tank to stop us now. I hoped this rain was a reliable source. If Cap was just talking about wet weather, we were all up the creek without a paddle. As we barreled across town in the direction of the hospital, a line of police cars continued to grow until we were leading a parade of 7 black and whites and at least a couple of unmarked vehicles. The kids on board were totally whoa. Except for the engine noise and Naomi shouted directions, there was utter silence. We had to be the best behaved busload of kids in the history of Sea Average Middle School. I would have enjoyed the sight of so many people who had terrorized me being terrorized themselves, except that I was twice as scared as they were. By the time we pulled into the entrance of Metro East Medical Center, we looked like a scene from Thelma and Louise, with half the police department strung out in back of pursuit of us, sirens blaring. I could see nurses and paramedics diving out of the way as the big bus rocketed up the drive to the emergency room. Cap stomped on the brakes and we squealed to a halt behind a parked ambulance. A whole lot of cruisers surrounded us on all sides. The hospital guys were angry at first, but as soon as they caught a glimpse of Mr. Rodrigo, they were all business. The fallen driver was rushed into the building on a stretcher. No sooner had the automatic doors swallowed him up than the first officer stomped up the stairs of the bus. "You're in a lot of trouble, kid." The police made Cap lie face down in the aisle while they cuffed his hands behind his back. It was something like an episode of Cops. They were treating him like a criminal, which I guess a school bus hijacker technically was. But we watched in awe as they hauled him roughly to his feet and marched him out to a squad car. Naomi was the first to speak up. "Cap didn't do anything wrong. He was just trying to save Mr. Rodrigo." The stunned passengers came alive at last. It started off as a rumbling of discontent, bubbling over into a chorus of outrage on Cap's behalf. "Quit pushing that guy to the ground. He's a hero. He didn't hit anything." The arresting officer wasn't buying it. "Quiet," he bellowed. "Now listen, I'm sending a patrolman in to drive this school bus back to school. I don't want to hear a peep out of any of you in the meantime." A door slammed as Cap was locked in the back of the cruiser. It was a terrible moment, and doubly terrible for me, because I wasn't proud of what was going on in my head just then. Cap had just been arrested at gunpoint. Mr. Rodrigo was in danger for his life, and what was I thinking about? That if Cap went to jail, I would be back in business as the #1 punching bag at C. Average Middle School. I was a worm, but at least I had the strength of character to be ashamed of it. Holy cow, y'all. Look, schooled, like, has a school bus in the front. Like, Cap just drove that bus. He, like, practically saved Mr. Rodrigo's life, like, took him all through traffic. Can you imagine if he were riding down the road in a school bus and the bus driver, like, fell over and, like, one of the students just jumped up and drove the bus? Like, whoa. So Cap has been arrested now for doing that. And Hugh, he's not worried about Cap going to jail. He's worried about Cap going to jail because he'll be like the next target. So, but Hugh does say, you know, at least I can admit that. So we're seeing kind of like a pool of I don't know the word I'm looking for, guys. We're looking for just like this struggle of poor Hugh. Like, you know, Cap, like, he's nice and he's awesome, but at the same time, he takes the attention off of me. Wow, he was really struggling, y'all. Okay, so that is it for today. I might be back this weekend for some more chapters. If not, I'll see you guys Monday. Happy Friday. Get outside, enjoy this weather, and thanks for listening to Read Aloud with Miss Godfrey. Bye.